first of all, hello and welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time sitting down with me to do this interview. How are you doing today?
Of course, my pleasure. I'm doing well. It's good. Uh, I'm in my home in Stockholm, my little studio booth, having talking to you. It's nice.
So, your new album, Imperial, is set to be released in a couple of weeks. How are you feeling about the upcoming release?
I mean, it's fantastic that we will, release it now. It's mixed emotions. I mean, you have the pandemic, you have all the problems, everything, but uh, it's in that sense, it's also, if you want to see the positive in this, it's good to have something to focus on and to have some expectations on, you know.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk a bit more about the album then. So, the album is called Imperial. What does the title stand for? Does it connect the songs? And if so, what does it mean?
I mean, I think it's a pretty nice word to sum up the whole album. Like, the themes and the whole thing that the themes we're in, with it's I mean it's a quite majestic album. It has sort of themes about power structures and hierarchies in societies and that kind of themes. So in that sense, Imperial is striking the right note, to what you listen to.
I think personally, Imperial, it also contains your heaviest song to date. But what can you tell fans about the overall sound of the album and how is it different from Lotus?
I mean, in a way, it's a continuation of Lotus, but because it's sort of like we are continuing on where we found a new sound on Lotus, and now that's something that we are building upon in Imperial. But I also think that we were quite clear already when we started writing for this album that we would bring in more metal. We would be sort of paying heed to these traditional elements of metal in another way. Perhaps that we have been like shying away from a little bit. I mean, in the beginning, I think we wanted to show that we could do experimental progressive music, and I think we still are doing that. But we also feel that there's so many bands today in the progressive scene that is sort of doing that now, like just going in the art rock direction, jazzy art rock style, and this is sort of a thing that we want to show that we come from metal. That's our roots. So that is also going to be reflected in our music.
Now, I remember you guys mentioned with the previous album that Cody didn't take part of the songwriting because the songs were already ready back then. And now Alexi also joined the band. But did they also partake in the songwriting process? And if so, how did that influence the sound?
Yeah, well, the way it goes is normally, Martin writes a song structure. He builds up something. We meet up, we try some vocals on it, some melodies, and we build upon that. And then we bring in the other musicians to. Lars has this fantastic arrangement abilities. He's very, very skilled arranger, if you like. And then Cody is sort of like invited to make all the solos for the album and all, bringing in his flavors and styles. And Zlatoyar, of course, like is able to bring his sort of like playing, his bass playing. But that's the way it goes. So I mean, usually, it's sort of like someone has to show the direction in the song structures in order to keep it concise.
I saw this video where Martin explained that the album was pretty much done before the pandemic already. But do you think that in a way, because of the pandemic, you were able to dedicate more of your time to it and do a bit differently than usual?
I think so, yeah. I mean, the fact that when we were supposed to start to record the album, to actually produce the album, that the songs that was already pre-written, it was already written, you know, they were supposed, we needed to go into the studio and record them. When we did that, we had a lot of time on our hands, and we and we didn't have, you know, all the festivals were canceled, all the gigs that we were supposed to do were canceled. So of course that gave us also a peace of mind. In, you know, we could just focus on the album. So in the sadness of not being able to do this gigs, of course, there maybe that kind of energy was able to be channeled into the making of the album. It was also like studios. Well, it was not hard to find studio time in Sweden because basically all the international artists had to cancel all their bookings. So I mean there was a lot of available studios, if you like.
Now, I read also that you spent a lot of time in creating the right kind of flow in the album. And in that sense, I also wanted to talk a little bit about the order of the songs, and especially about the way the album begins, because it kind of begins in a very in-your-face kind of way, especially in comparison to your previous album, which kind of started off really soft. Now, I was wondering, how did you guys decide on Lumerian becoming the first track?
Yeah, I think it was quite clear really early on when we, you know, in the writing process, you know that, okay, this is going to be opening track, you know. Sometimes you just know when you have that, and it's hard to point the direction, but like what it is. I think we were also quite, you know, we wanted to show, you know, it's you know, this is a strong album. It has power, and you know that you should really feel that from the first seconds when you put on the album, you know, where we are.
Yeah. But how in general do you decide on the order of the songs? Is that something that becomes immediately clear to you during the songwriting, or is, well, except for this song, is that something you decide on later on when everything is ready?
Yeah, I'd say that the actual order is something that comes really late. Sometimes, you know, opening tracks and stuff like that, you know, or like an ending track, that, you know, the opening and ending can be quite clear from early on, but usually you put the pieces in the puzzle at this, you know, these are the last pieces that you put in, because, you know, when you have everything finalized, you start to realize how they, you know, interact with each other as songs, and how they, you know, make a great album. And you know, being like a traditional, you know, being the old dinosaurs that we are, we always think in terms of like a vinyl album when we so it's also like side A and side B, you know, when we think of it.
Yeah, I actually, because I sometimes ask this question, and a lot of bands from your age too, they all have this kind of vinyl thing going on in their heads. It's interesting when I ask this to younger bands, they don't really do that.
Like vinyl, what?
Yeah. Anyhow, so you guys always kind of base your lyrics and the songs on what happens around you. So what were kind of the main inspirations for this album, or did you write the lyrics during the pandemic?
No, it was before the pandemics, and it's yeah. But I mean, we want to write about ourselves and things that affects us. It's no fairy tales in that sense, like or made up stories. It's more real things, you know. I think that we can be quite. It's sort of like you're vulnerable when you do that because it's, I mean, if you are sincere and if you're honest, then you're an easy target as well, you know. There's no irony in what we're saying or sarcasm. We're not being like that. So but I think that that's more honest. I think when you listen to the music, it sort of gives you another depth, you know, when you know that what we write is actually really sincere.
Mm-hmm.
It's about real life, you know.
Do you think that the meaning of the lyrics kind of changed when this whole thing began?
The meaning, I think that they are interpreted in another way, but they were not written with the pandemic in mind, you know. But the thing is that, of course, a lot of the sign of the times that we have right now, the polarization in the society, all the populistic parties around the world, all the oppression that we see, and these kind of things has been going on for a while now, and it has also been enforced by the pandemic. So it's not because of the pandemic, but the pandemic really made it even worse. So the themes that we bring up in the album are more actual than ever because of this.
You also, in all your albums, you have these one-word titles. But what is the thought process in picking the right words for the titles and that capture the right essence of the songs?
No, but it's just exactly as you put it. It's sort of like the thought process is that you put out a one title word as you set the stage for the song. You set a mindset, basically. So we invite you as a listener to contribute yourself. So I mean, we have a thing in mind. We have a certain idea of what this song is, but then we just give you a hint, like, okay, monarch, now you make it, or antagonist, for example. We just give you that word, and then you have to sort of start to contribute yourself, because that makes it more powerful in a way. It's a little bit like, you know, reading a book instead of watching a movie. That, you know, you if you're contributing yourself, it also gets stronger because you're contributing.
Yeah. Does it take a lot, like, of time for you guys to pick out the right word? Like, do you have usually multiple options, or is it something you instantly agree on?
There can be multiple options. Yeah, this is a discussion that we have. Sometimes it's very clear from the beginning, but, you know, it's also, I mean, it's like with everything that we do, that you put a lot of work into it, but in the end, it's sort of like it has to be sort of decided by some kind of spirit, if you like, some kind of, you know, it just feels like, okay, that's the one, boom. Like, okay, yeah, that's good. Same thing with music, you know, how do you finalize a song? Like, when is it ready? When is it done? Or like, when is it good or when is it bad? It's impossible to know. It's just something that you learn to feel that, okay, that's right. Now it's done. Now it's final.
Yeah, I think you're also the kind of band that thinks a lot about these things, and like how you guys, like, for instance, your music videos and lyric videos as well, and your cover art, and everything has a certain look and kind of feel to it. Is that, like, correct at all?
No, everything I mean, of course, yeah. It's sort of like everything sort of is interlinked together. You know, the cover of the album, the songs. I mean, it has always been important for us now. You know, both the what to say, the artistic side, or like the music and the impression that you get. You know, so, yeah, it's really important. I don't know if it might come from this, that might be the progressive tradition, you know, where you have this kind of huge albums that also always were, you know, very, very comprehensive and you know, built together as a unity.
So I think also a lot of people really liked your lyric video for Antagonist. Also because it fits so well with you know, the stage of the world. So how did you guys come up with that idea?
I mean, no, I think we got some kind. It's a great. It was the producer of the video, Sev, that had a bit of this idea, and when we really thought that it was a good thing, it really worked with you know, our you know, what we thought of, you know, that this song is about. So it's sort of his interpretation of the song, and it's a very good interpretation because, you know, it's yeah, it's very inspiring to see. But it was his decision to do it like that and to turn it out in that way.
Is that because you just talked about that it's kind of important for you that everyone can interpret your album in the same way? Whenever you work with artists, do you give them a free hand to follow their own like kind of thing, or do you give them some advice usually?
No. We try to give everyone we work with creative freedom to you know, to make something and really be inspired and really contribute creatively. So like, it's really important. It's like with everything that you don't over control or choke you know, what you have around you. That which is hard, because if you're very ambitious, like, you know, we are very ambitious. We put in a lot of work into our albums and everything we do. Quality is extremely important to us, and you know, what we say and what we do and how we, you know, are perceived. But if you start to you know, micromanage everyone around you, then you know, you end up choking everyone. So it's a very, very thin line.
Yeah.
You have to thread on.
In that sense, what can you tell us about the cover art? Because it's also quite interesting again.
Well, it's, you know, it's the snake is both, you know, a representation of the devil and evil, and also it's a representation of healing and that perspective. And it's also, to me, it's sort of a symbol of elegance and royalty, if you like. So it's sort of also, and you know, it's sort of sophisticated and elegant. Mm-hmm. So I think it really, in that sense, it works very good with what we're expressing on this album.
So I was also very moved by the song Modesty. I was wondering, what can you tell us about that song?
Yeah. Well, actually it's funny, when we made it, we thought that well, it was too dark. It was even for us as a dark metal band, we thought, like, we cannot release this because it's so thick and it's so dark that, you know, we will you know, there has to be some kind of glimpse of light in the music. But I think that in all the doom and gloom, if you like, there is sort of something that comes out of that song that gives you hope as well. I think the balance was right. And it's a beautiful song. It was fantastic to work with as a vocalist. I had to challenge myself a lot to get sort of all the right expressions on that song. It was so I'm very proud of how it turned out.
Yeah, it was actually a song to me that stood out. Maybe because it's so dark. I don't know, but it was it's really cool.
So that catered to you and your
Yeah.
dark. Yeah.
Anyway, so I think this is the second time you're working with this producer. But beforehand, you guys were mostly producing the songs yourself, as I remember correctly. Do you think, like, do you feel like this is something you will always do from now on, having this outside perspective? And how do you feel it has, with these two albums, influenced your sound as a band?
I mean, one thing working with Iñaki Marconi as a producer is also it's very safe because he's almost like a band member. You know, he's one of the team, and so it's something that we can do very very in comfort. You know, we know him very well, and he's an extremely talented person as well. So it's really really good for us. And will we continue working with other people, making, having ideas and perspectives? Absolutely, I think so. Yeah, I think this is a very good way to explore new, get new perspectives on your music. I think by now we are also very, very, we feel safe in what is sort of the core of Soen, what is a Soen sound. And in that sense, we don't have to worry that the Soen element will be lost. It doesn't matter who we work with. It will always turn out to a great Soen song. And this is that's very inspiring. Like, for example, this time we work with Kane Shurko, that is an American metal mixer, and he did the mixing of the album, and that would not be the obvious choice for a progressive band normally, I would say. But that's precisely that's precisely the reason why we wanted to do this, because we wanted something different. We didn't want to do this sort of like the package of progressive metal that maybe in all genres this can happen, that there's something starts to become a prescription or a method of making albums, and as soon as you start to realize that, we want to go another way.
Yeah.
And find another direction.
As a vocalist, how do you feel like this album challenged you in ways that you haven't experienced before?
Yes, and I think I was quite clear when we started writing. We had discussions with me and Martin was discussing that, and I wanted to bring in a new kind of vibe into the vocals, something more uncontrolled and raw and more desperate, because in the beginning it was quite controlled and sophisticated and elegant. It was that was interesting back then, when we did Cognitive and Tellurian, and having a non-metal way of expressing myself. But I really felt that the songs that were coming along, they really demanded this kind of desperate expression, and I enjoy it a lot to bring in that. So this has been the most challenging album to make, vocal wise, because I'm really treading in territories where I haven't been on the other albums.
You also have a tour planned in some months. Now, of course, don't really know if it's gonna happen or not. But one way or another, if it doesn't happen now, I'm pretty sure it will happen at some point. But in general, what can people expect from the tour? Are you planning to perform a lot of new songs?
Oh, that's for sure. We're gonna bring in a lot of songs from Imperial, because we have already tried it out in in our rehearsal studio, and they sound fantastic. So so people will not be able to get away from that. We will play them for sure, and but we always bring in old songs as well. Because we know that we want to play them, and we know that people want to hear them. So I think that when we actually are able to go out live, I think we will definitely be better than we have ever been. Because I think we are, as a band, we are really, really evolving right now, and we feel really energized, and really at the peak of our game. Someone just have to let us out there to play.
Yeah, that's kind of a bit double, of course, but yeah, I hope at least that in 2021 you guys get to play, because I'm sure you also miss performing.
We do.
Yeah. But I think that's it for my questions, and our time is almost up anyway. Do you have any last thoughts you want to share with people watching this video and your fans?
No, just hang in there. I hope we're really looking forward to go back to Finland. It has always been like one of our, that was the country that we started with Spine Farm, a Finnish label back then, and Finland has always been close to our hearts. So I really, really hope that we will be able to go there pretty soon and play again.